Hi, I'm ReveloGM, and today we're talking about spells in Pathfinder 2nd Edition again. Last time we covered cantrips. This week we're looking at first rank spells. Rank? Yeah, equivalent to level, but distinct, so new players don't muddle character level and spell level. It's a remaster change, so maybe OGL has something to do with it, but I think it's just to prevent confusion, and honestly in game I think spells being ranked makes a little bit more sense than leveled, but that's just me. Now, there are lots of level 1 spells, so we are splitting this list up a little bit further. We're going to go by each tradition, so that's Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal. Not necessarily in that order. This may change at high levels where there are less spells to choose from, but for now, that's how we're going to tackle them. Some of these spells are of course shared between multiple traditions, but we're focusing on ones today that I think are cool from an arcane perspective. Again, these are not necessarily the best spells, the most effective, or the most useful, but ones that I think, amongst those things, may also provide interesting insight into the world that Pathfinder is creating, or that can be useful or fun for world building or RP opportunities, to give to a particularly niche character design you may be going for, or to give to an NPC who's maybe not going to be out adventuring and need all of these powerful, magical, offensive or defensive spells, but maybe something more specific. Oh, a couple of them are legacy spells as well from original Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and we'll clarify that where required. So we're just going to kind of go through the spells, and I'm going to ramble through them a little bit. It's not going to be quite as focused and scripted as some of the other content I've done, but hopefully it'll still be interesting and entertaining. Let us begin. First up, we have Air Bubble, which is a reaction and has the air and concentrate traits. It is in the Arcane tradition, as well as Divine and Primal, which makes sense. The trigger is a creature within range enters an environment where it can't breathe. It has a range of 60 feet and targets the triggering creature. The duration is 1 minute. A bubble of pure air appears around the target's head, allowing it to breathe normally. The effect ends as soon as the target returns to an environment where it can breathe normally. Obviously, quite niche, but I quite like this for, you know, a situation where maybe you've been on a ship sailing, or you live near a large body of water and you've got like a lifeguard equivalent maybe, and they've got maybe a couple of spells, or they've just got the one and it's Air Bubble for in case people start drowning, and they can just be like reaction, snap, done. Similarly, obviously with your players, if you've got a cleric or something, then you can just take this when you acquire, so that if you're near large bodies of water or something, you're able to prevent your allies from drowning. But also from an arcane perspective, I like the kind of trial and error element of this. I think the idea of, okay, well, if we have people going near water and they're not necessarily great swimmers because they spend most of their time researching in a library or something, then how can we facilitate that? How can we update that? How can we amend our safety protocols, as it were, so that that's no longer a problem? So let's create an air bubble so that they can, if anything like that does happen, if there are any accidents, we can just resolve the problem. I think that's quite fun. I quite enjoy that. Could do a wizard or something who's kind of scared of the ocean. They've got a bunch of fire spells to kind of try and scare it away and burn it off, and air bubble to prevent them from having to breathe underwater or anything, maybe water walking at later levels, so you can just skim over it, like the hydrophobic wizards in Discworld. Next up we have Agitate, which is a 2-action spell. It has the Concentrate, Manipulate, Mental, and Non-Lethal traits. It is an arcane and occult spell, and is related to a couple of deities as well. It has a range of 30 feet and targets a creature with a defensive will save. You send the target's mind and body into overdrive, forcing it to become restless and hyperactive. During the duration, the target must stride, fly, or swim at least once each turn, or take 2d8 mental damage at the end of its turn. The GM might decide to add additional move actions to the list for any creatures that possess a more unusual form of movement. It's a fun clarification. And the duration of this effect depends on the will save. If they critically fail, it's 4 rounds. If they fail, it's 2. If they succeed, it's 1. And if they critically succeed, it has no effect. I kind of love this idea of just make them super hyperactive and agitated. It's just quite entertaining. At high levels also, the damage increases if they do not move by 2d8 per level. It's fun. It makes them have to move if someone's in combat with someone else and maybe they're not trying to move because that's going to provoke opportunity attacks or something. Then they're forced to stay in, and then they're taking 2d8 damage. 2d8 damage from a level 1 spell is nothing to nothing to sniff at. It's not bad. It's pretty good. It's pretty cool. Or they have to move and then they maybe take an attack of opportunity or something like that. It's fun. It also might be counterintuitive sometimes because maybe they're going to then move and not be near you, and then you have to move back to them. But it's just silly. It's just a unique kind of spell that I just find quite entertaining and a fun sort of option for like, well, are they going to move? Well, they're not. It gives you some agency as a GM, or if it's casting you as a player, about how you want the spell to affect you or what you think they would do in the situation as well. It's quite fun. Our third one on the list we have is Breadcrumbs, which is a legacy content spell. Traditions? Well, this is all 4. Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal. Cast time is 1 minute. The range is touch, it targets 1 willing creature, and the duration is 1 hour. You protect your target from going astray in hostile territory by tracking where it's already been, helping it deduce where it still needs to go. The target leaves a glittering trail behind it that lasts for the spell's duration. The trail doesn't denote the direction or the order of its path, merely indicates where the target has moved during the spell's duration. At second level, the duration increases to 8 hours, and at third, the duration increases until the next daily preparations. This is just another really fun, kind of unique spell for wizards who may be going and exploring dungeons or old cave systems and things like that. Potentially, ones that have already been cleared out and they're now kind of being a cartographer, they're mapping it, that's what I'm trying to say, and they need to know where they have been and where they haven't been, and so they're like, well, let's create some kind of spell so that we don't get lost and we can tell if we've already been somewhere or not. And I just think that's quite fun. Similar to the one that allows you to count a certain number of things, but obviously more actually useful in a survival situation because you now know where you've been and where you haven't been, but very niche. But something that maybe if you had some kind of scholar coming with you to investigate some location with your party, it's a kind of spell that they would have, even if the party itself didn't. But again, it's on the divine list, so take it. Our next one is Conductive Weapon. Concentrate, Electricity, Manipulate, and Metal traits. It is 2 actions. It's in the Arcane and Primal, as you may have guessed by it being an electricity spell as well. It often is Primal if it's going to be elemental. Has a range of touch, targets 1 metal weapon that is unattended or attended by a willing creature, and duration is 1 minute. You channel powerful electric currents through the metal of a weapon, zapping anyone the item hits. The target becomes a +1 shock weapon, and if any target of an attack with the weapon is wearing metal armor or it's primarily made of metal, the electricity damage from the shock rune is a d12. Shock weapons deal an extra 1d6 electricity damage on a hit, and on a critical hit, the electricity arcs out and deals an equal amount of electricity damage to up to 2 creatures of your choice within 10 feet of the target. So it's an extra d6 of damage on a hit for up to a minute, and then if you're hitting something that is metal or metal armored, it's a d12 instead. That shows a fun, solid damage spell, but I like the uniqueness of it being a more electric one, rather than the kind of classic fire and stuff. Obviously those exist, but I just like to put that one in there because it's electricity, and then it has the conductivity element, which is just quite neat. Another legacy one next, Gravitational Pull, which can cost from 1 to 3 actions. Had the Evocation trait. It's in the Arcane and Occult traditions, and has a range 30 feet, targets one creature against a Fortitude save. By suddenly altering gravity, you pull the target towards you. The target is pulled 10 feet closer to you and succeeds in a Fortitude save, and on critical failure it's also knocked prone. Or pulled prone, I suppose. The effects of this spell change depending on the number of actions used when you cast it. For 1, the target only affects 1 creature. For 2, the spell targets 1 creature and pulls them 20 feet instead of 10. And for 3, it can target up to 5 creatures. I do love these spells in Pathfinder where you have multiple options depending on how many actions you wish to cast it with, usually becoming more powerful the more actions you use. But still not ineffective with just the 1. If you only got 1 target and they're not too far, and you just need to pull them closer so that you can, hit them or cast another spell that's got a touch range on, then perfect. Also, gravity spells are always a lot of fun. Next up we have Mending, which is traditionally I believe a cantrip, so I put it on the list because I think it's interesting that it is separate. It's in all 4 of the lists, but I think again an arcane thing kind of makes sense for it. Concentrate and Manipulate traits, cast time 10 minutes, range of touch, targets non-magical objects of light bulk or less. And you repair the target item. You restore 5 hit points per spell rank to the target, potentially removing the broken condition. Potentially removing the broken condition if it moves it past the broken threshold. You can't replace lost pieces or repair an object that's been completely destroyed. And heightened to second level, it can be 1 bulk or less, but still non-magical, and a third non-magical 2 bulk or less, or a magical item of 1 bulk or less. So because items in Pathfinder have hit points usually, and have hardness and things like that, and can actually be damaged and have conditions, a mending spell therefore becomes a little bit more powerful. Still not hugely, it's still only a level 1 spell rather than a cantrip, but it makes sense as to why it is slightly elevated in power. And again, this is a spell that maybe you could have, but maybe, you know, you've got at a weapons guild or something, a weapons guild, an adventurers guild, or thieves guild, or potentially a merchant's guild of some kind. You've got some people who just specialise in mending and are able to mend various items that are small and fix things up for people, and, you know, potentially do bigger work as well. But, you know, that's kind of their specialty, is mending little bits and pieces. Okay, Mind Link, 2 actions: Concentrate, Manipulate, and Mental. Has it in the Arcane and Occult traditions, and is also related to the Lore mystery, which is for a specific class. It has the range of touch and targets 1 willing creature. You link your mind to the target's mind and mentally impart to that target an amount of information in an instant that could otherwise be communicated in 10 minutes. This is one of those, again, that is not a particularly useful spell in a mechanical battle sense, but for a bunch of different scholars, maybe studying lots of different information separately, coming together in a meeting that they need to kind of tell each other lots of stuff quickly, or maybe investigators working on a case, scouts from a battle transferring information and battlefield logistics, stuff like that. Being able to do a mind link and give someone 10 minutes worth of information instead of spending 10 minutes communicating with them is awesome, is very cool. And I think, again, as an arcane spell, makes a lot of sense with them being like, doing all this talking about our books and stuff we enjoy, but sometimes we need to do it quicker. How can we do that? And then this is that result. So yeah, again, another spell that I think would make a lot of sense for lots of NPCs to have, and could be quite a fun spell for a player to have in a certain situation. But yeah, just a fun world building one again, I think. Now this one I have to see if I can spell correctly. Do I mean spell? Do I mean read? I mean read. I don't need to spell it. Schadenfreude, I think. Or Schadenfreude? Let me know in the comments below, but I think it's Schadenfreude. It's a fun word. It's got the concentrate, emotional, and mental traits, and is a reaction. It's in the Arcane, Divine, and Occult traditions, and the trigger is you critically fail a saving throw against a foe's effect. The range is 30 feet, and it targets the triggering foe with a defense of a will save. You distract your enemy with their feeling of smug pleasure when you fail catastrophically, and it must attempt a will save. On a critical success, they are of course unaffected. On a success, they are distracted by its amusement and take a -1 status penalty to perception checks and will saves for 1 round. On a failure, they are overcome by its amusement and stupefied 1 for 1 round, and on critical failure, they are lost in amusement and stupefied 2 for 1 round, and stunned 1. This is just such a fun, quirky spell that makes a lot of sense for maybe some kind of angry arcane scholar to try and use to get one over on their friends because they kept laughing at them when they, I don't know, failed their reflex saves when they were doing some little bit of sparring, if wizards were even to do such a thing. But yeah, it's just really cool. Obviously, it is quite limited in its usage. It's not going to come up all that often, failing a foe's effect critically, but again, if you are a caster and you're a wizard or someone, your saves are not going to be quite as high as a martial character, at least fortitude and reflex a lot of the time, and so maybe you would be able to use this on them. And it's just very entertaining and just such a unique spell again that I wanted to highlight. And our last one is Temporary Tool, which has the Concentrate and Manipulate traits and is only in the Arcane tradition. It takes 1 minute to cast, so it's not a combat spell once again, and it has a duration of 1 minute or until used. You conjure a temporary simple tool, such as a shovel or rope, into your hands, and it lasts until it's used for a single activity or for 1 minute, whichever comes first, after which it disappears. The tool is obviously temporarily conjured and thus can't be sold or passed off as a genuine item. Super cool, super fun. Again, just one of those things of wizards mucking about and being like, oh, I could really use just a small hammer right now. Where is one? I can't be bothered to find one. Let's just make a spell for this so that we can just do it quickly. Whether they are doing a little bit of dungeon delving, kind of archaeological stuff, research, or it's just, shoot, where did I put my quill? I don't know. Temporary tool. Get a quill for a minute. I just need to write down a quick note or something. It's just so fun. It's very entertaining. It has a lot of use. I'm sure you could sway with your game master, being like, could I technically use for this? And obviously that would be up to their discretion. But just a really fun, unique spell that I think you could have a lot of fun with if you actually took it as a player character. But I think makes a lot of sense as another spell that would exist within a world where there is the ability to create magic and find ways to make life easier. And that's it. That is our, I think, 10 fun, intriguing, interesting, arcane rank 1 spells. Hi, recording Revelo GM here. That's not right, that was 9, not 10. I can't count. Again, I've done it once more. So we're going to talk about Force Barrage quickly as well, which has the concentrate, force, and manipulate actions, and can cost 1 up to 3 actions. It has a range of 120 feet, targets 1 creature. You fire a shard of solidified magic towards a creature you can see. It automatically hits and deals 1d4 plus 1 magic damage. No, force damage even. For each additional action you use when casting a spell, increase the number of shards you shoot by 1, to a maximum of 3 for 3. You choose the target for each shard individually, and if you choose to shoot more than 1 shard at the same target, you combine the damage before applying bonuses or penalties to damage, resistances, weaknesses, and so forth. Now what's interesting about this is that when you heighten it, you fire 1 additional shard with each action you spend. That's not 1 more shard. That's if you were to use just 1, sure, 2 shards, but if you can use 2, that's 4 shards, and if you're going to use all 3, that becomes 6 shards. And that keeps on going. So you exponentially get a lot more magic missiles equivalents, which makes it definitely feel a lot more like a barrage. So even though the damage is the same, at high levels, if you still use the spell, it really still hits, especially if you are, because you don't have to actually hit with it. You can just you just automatically deal the damage, and you combine things before you factor in penalties or weaknesses and things like that. So it becomes a very formidable spell. So just an interesting, different version of the classic magic missile, which is definitely an arcane spell. And I don't know how I miscounted again, but I'm glad I did, because it meant I got to talk about this, which I probably otherwise would have missed. Back to the outro. If I missed any of this list that you find are particularly interesting, let me know down in the comments below. Of course, they may be ones that I saw and was like, ooh, that's cool, but I'm going to come back to that for Divine, Occult, or Primal. I'll be interested to see what other people think about arcane spells. Let me know down in the comments below. We'll be back next time for probably Divine next, I expect, but maybe we'll mix it up. Maybe we'll do Primal or Occult. If you're particularly interested in any of the other lists, let me know, and maybe we'll do that first. But that's all for this episode, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.